Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today we're doing a codex catch-up. So let's jump right on in. Dragons. Female dragons take much longer to mature than their male counterparts. They too undergo a metamorphosis of sorts at adulthood. But while males lose use of their back forepaws, females actually grow a third set of limbs, specifically to service as wings. Young females travel great distances looking for a sustainable nesting site. Because of their nomadic habits, these are the dragons most frequently encountered by man. The Life Drinker. No one knows for certain where this amulet came from, and all we have is a legend. Long before the Golden City turned black, there lived in the Tevinter Imperium a frail old magician. In the court of the Archon, Archgon, the Life Drinker. No one knows for certain where this amulet came from. All we have is a legend. Long before the Golden City turned black, there lived in the Tevinter Imperium a frail old magician in the court of Archon. He was the least among the mages of the courts, and the lamplighter whose was to set all the thousands of candles alight and snuff them again when the archon retired for the evening. He was counted as useless by all the most influential magisteers, but he was only biding his time. One day, when all the magisteers of the Imperium were assembled in the great hall of the Archgon, the lamplighter struck. He conjured a massive firestorm in the hall, trying to assassinate all who were assembled and seize power himself. The court was made up of the most powerful mages of the Imperium, and they worked quickly to destroy the would-be usurper, but found to their astonishment their magic was no match for the old mage. Every spell they casted was countered, and the magisteers began to fall, one by one, until only the Archon himself and the lamplighter were left, locked in battle of magic and will. The Archon saw that with each spell he casted, the lamplighter himself seemed to wither and fade a little more. So he bombarded the mage with spell after spell until at last nothing was left of the place but rubble, nothing left of the court but corpses, and nothing left of the lamplighter but a golden pendant. This the Archgon kept to remind himself that treachery could come from even the most consequential sources. Uh-oh. Is that the one that we let out of the pendant? Oopsies. You live and you learn, right? Okay. The caste list. The caste system in Ozamar includes many groups of privilege, the nobility and the warriors above all others, but to a lesser degree the merchants and the smiths and the miners. Tradition establishes a clear hierarchy, but as in any culture with an upper class, there is also a clear underclass. These unfortunates, the so-called classless, are believed to be descendants of criminals and other undesirables. They have been looked down upon since Ozamar's foundation. They have taken up residency in a place called Dust Town, a crumbling ruin on the fringe of Ozamar's common areas. Ozamar's society considered these casteless lower than even the servant caste. Indeed, the casteless are not allowed to become servants as it is too honorable a position. They are seen as little better than animals, their faces branded at birth to mark them as the bastard children of the kingdom. Their home district little more than a slum, is a haven for crime, organized and otherwise. Ozamar's guards seemingly cannot be bothered to patrol its streets. The best that the the best that most castless stores can hope for is a life at the whim of a local crime lord, ended abruptly by violence or an overabundance of toxic lichen ale. Even so, there is some hope for the castless, a dangling rope that offers a way up into the greater Ozamar society. Since a dwarf's caste is determined by the parents of the same sex, the male child of a noble man is part of the noble's house and caste. Strangely, it is acceptable for a casteless woman to train in the arts of country romance to woo nobles and warriors. They are known as noble hunters. Any male born from such a union is considered a joyous event, considering the low rate of dwarven fertility. The mother and the entire family are then taken in by the father's house, although they retain their caste. The dwarves we know on the surface are also considered casteless ones. They leave Ozamar, although this is only relevant to those who return, if they were allowed to return at all. Dwarves who leave for the surface, the sun touched, as they're often called behind their backs, lose their connection to the stone and the favor of the ancestors, and thus are worthy of little more than pity, for upon dying they are said to be lost to the stone forever. Put that way, it seems a sad existence indeed. From Stone Halls of the Dwarven by Brother Javinci, Chantry Scholar. Life in Ozamar. The dwarves of Ozamar are quite unlike those found in most human cities. Although Ozamar derives its vast wealth from trade with human kingdoms, all dwarves who come to the surface to trade are stripped of their position in society. Dwarven merchants are also ubiquitous in human cities that many people labor under the impression that all dwarves are merchants, or that their whole race worship coin and trade. But these surface dwarves are atypical creatures, the ones willing to give up all ties to their kin and sacrifice the rank in order to conduct business. Below ground, the dwarves are a people obsessed with honor, their own and that of their family. Most nobles incorporate chainmail even into formal gowns, because slights and insults often turn deadly. They are a people who revere excellence and strive to achieve it in all things. Even merchants of servant caste have been elevated to paragons, usually posthumously in recognition of remarkable service. From In Pursuit of Knowledge, the travel of a Chantry scholar by Brother Javinci. The city of Ozamar. The dwarves are landed for their craftsmanship, and the city of Ozamar is one of their finest works. Ozamar lies in the heart of the Frostback Mountains. Deep underground, the city arcs outward for the royal place, which is built around a natural lava vent continuously fountaining liquid rock, which both lights and heats the entire cave. The topmost tier of Ozamar is home to the noble caste, with their place fanning out in both directions of the court of the king, as well as the Shape which serves as a repository for all the dwarven knowledge. The lower tiers in the commons, where the merchant's caste holds sway and where the finest works of Ozmar craftsmen are for sale, in the center of the river of lava, connect to the commons by a causeway, are the proving grounds, a scattered arena where the dwarves by ancient tradition settle their disputes. On one side of the Fury River are the ruins of an old dwarven palace fallen into disrepair, which the locals call Dust Town, now home to the city's castless. On the other side of the river are the deep roads, which once joined the sprawling dwarves' empire together. But now, after centuries of darkspawn insurrection and large are largely sealed off, nearly all knowledge of this network of underground passages has been lost even to its builders. From In Pursuit of Knowledge, The Travels of a Chantry Scholar by Brother Da Vinci. The Paragons. As I studied among the dwarves, I became aware that their social system was as rigged as the stone that surrounded them. From the lowest servant to the king of Osamar, each dwarf has a caste, a rigid social standing, which dictates what he may do and how he may do it. What fascinated me then was that the dwarves, stubborn and proud as they may be, have built it in a way for even the lowest dwarf to bypass the caste system and reach prominence. Any dwarf who has made an achievement of significance can be named a paragon, elevating the dwarf above all others. To become a paragon is to be recognized as essentially a living ancestor. Your words are considered infallible, and the dwarves liken you unto a god. Your family, those you chose to ascend with you, become the founders of a new line of nobility. Indeed, every existing noble house among the dwarves traces its lie back to a founding paragon. It is a rare thing, however. In my visit, I learned that only one paragon has been elected in generations. The smith Baranka, exalted for her discovery in smokeless coal. I met the Paragon Barranca only once in my stay, and I consider it an odd occasion indeed. Surrounded by those of her house, this ill tempered woman was draped in the finest clothing and jewelry, and was obviously revered even above the highest nobles, perhaps even the king, yet she seemed to enjoy none of it. The burden of being a living legend is great, it appears. Statues of the paragons are found throughout Ozamar, though nowhere so prominent than in the halls of the heroes, which one passes on entrance from the surface. It is a breathtaking sight to behold. Great works of stone all seem to hold up in the ceiling above. It is meant to impress upon visitors to Ozamar of all who have gone before, I think. It is also meant to remind dwarves going to the surface, and thus abandoning their brethren forever, of all they are leaving behind. From Stone Halls of the Dwarves by Brother Da Vinci, Chantry Scholar. Ozamar policies. As dangerous as it is to mistake a dwarf caste, it is far more deadly to mistake his allies among the noble houses of Ozamar. Everyone in the city is allied with someone, whether by blood or by word. The nobles do not engage directly in commissary themselves, as that is the domain of the merchant caste. But they do serve as patrons. They invest in shops or in artistry works, and in turn reap a share of the profits as well as a measure of the credit. Merchant and warriors alike benefit from the service of a prestigious patron. The relative power of each house is ever changing. It is usually safe to assume that whichever noble house holds the throne is at the top of the heap, but below that, things grow into a tangled mess. Houses ally with one another by marriage. They earn rank and prestige when combats loyal to them, or from their own bloodlines. Win provings, they earn it when artistry they patronize becomes sought after, or well regulated, or when the merchants they invested in become successful. The degrees of power that these achievements confer is so murky, even to the dwarves, that it isn't unusual for the noble to challenge each other to provings over whose smith forged better belt buckles, or whose servant has the best manners, nor is it out of the ordinary for two merchants arguing over whose noble patron has won the most acclaim. For the rank of the patron is the rank of the client. Nowhere is this more apparent than in the assembly, where the dasher representation of each noble house meets. Although the king technically rules Ozamar, kings are elected by the assembly, and so each king must work constantly to maintain the support of the dashers. Kings who prove unpopular find their heirs deemed unacceptable to inherit the throne. Power then passes to another house. From In Pursuit of Knowledge, The Travels of a Chantry Scholar by Brother Da Vinci. Ozamar History, Chapter 1. The memories tell us that our kingdom once reached far beyond the mountains, and that the Thays were almost beyond counting. Al Sharak was the capital then, home to all the noble homes, and Ozamar was simply the home of the miner and smith castes. It was with the Tevinter Imperium that things changed. Paragon Garl moved the seat of power to Ozamar to more closely oversee the trade that begun with the surface. It seemed that our people were entering a new age of prosperity. The memories hold no explanation for the coming of the Darkspawn, only questions. At first, there were rumors, noises in the deep roads, a lost traveler here and there. The warrior caste sent men to patrol the roads and thought the matter settled. We did not know that while we searched for them, they were engaging in a search of their own. Sleeping deep in the stone itself was the archdemon. They found him and awakened him, and the blight began. The darkspawn poured out of the deep roads like smoke. Then, and the warrior caste struggled to hold them back. Countless things were lost in that first blight, but as ever in the worst moments of our need, a paragon arose. Paragon Aldacan led the defense of Ozamar, and the Dark Horde was beaten back. The cost of victory, however, was great. Much of the deep roads were sealed to hold back the Darkspawn, cutting off things, and even whole cities forever. Ozamar as a kingdom, as told by Sharper Cybor. Ozamar's History, Chapter 2. We are losing the war against the Darkspawn, slowly a few men at a time, but losing all the same. The warrior caste was dwindling with each generation as more able-bodied men perished in their prime without fathering sons. With each generation, more of the deep roads had to be sealed, more thawns lost forever. The kings of Ozamar watched and wondered how long it would be until nothing remained of our people but the memories. And then the paragon Cardarin arose from the smith caste with a new weapon, golems. Great soldiers of living stone and metal, each one was an army. With the paragon's golems, we began to retake the land we had lost. For a while, there was hope that finally victory was coming. But at the height of the war, Paragon Cardan disappeared, and with him, the means to make the golems. Several forays were made into the deep woods to search for the paragon, but nothing was ever found. Over time, the golems we had were damaged beyond repair, and we began our slide once again towards extinction. Ozamar is a kingdom, as told by Sharper Cybor. Belin Adkin. This is a time for action, not cultured debate. Third of the King Aldrin's children, Belin has always been considered the last and least of his family, not the heir nor the favorite, and not as accomplished as either sibling. Belin's most notable trait was his ability to stay out of trouble. Arl Eamon Gerlin. This was no common ailment. Ellen was poisoned by a blood rain Joan, who claimed to be working for Terrain Logain. The Earl's life was saved, but only by extraordinary measures, finding the urn of ashes and the remains of Andraste herself. King Enderm Alnuk. I'm awful at pronouncing these things. Denial of the tradition of our people does not qualify as a political technicality. Endurin of House Aldecan traces his ancestry back to the Paragon Aldecan, the greatest warrior of Ozamar's history, who beat back the Dwarven horde in the First Blight. The second son of the king Asgar Alderkin. He became heir after his elder brother died in approving. The most respected king in 4 generations, he restored contact with Kalsharak, the only other remaining city of once vested Dwarven Empire, which had been lost during the First Blight. Lord Pyrrell Haramont, no one is born with the right to the throne. The sitting king may recommend a successor, but the assembly ultimately decides who will rule. House Haramont is one of the oldest noble homes, as old as Ozamar itself. Aldrin's most trusted advisor, Haramont, is well known for being an able administrator and an author of many compromises in the ever-warning assembly. Orgrin. I'm not saying I should be your first pick for a dance partner at an inaugural ball, but in the deep roads, I'm your man. Orgrin of House Condurat was once a promising member of the warrior caste. His house was not especially high ranked, but many of its members, Ogeron included, had won notable victories in provings and were considered to be rising in prestige when a Smith caste family with plenty of when a Smith class family with plenty of money but no political connections offered their daughter in marriage, his family accepted the match and everything changed. His wife Brianka was named a paragon. For her achievements, all of the House Condurat joined her newly made noble House Baranka and vanished with her into the deep roads. As time passed, it became more and more clear that Ogeron had been abandoned. He became the butt of jokes throughout Ozamar. He took to drink, which didn't essentially help. Drunk and humiliated, he changed another warrior. Drunk and humiliated, he challenged another warrior to a proving over an insult and killed him. The match meant to be fought to first blood. As a punishment, he was stripped of his house and barred from bearing arms. The only fate worse for a warrior than exalt. Ogeron enjoys challenging his palate with alcohols and even increasing rarity, providency, and outright lethality. This has afforded him no benefit whatsoever. The Holy Barzar, the Barzar that stands atop the stairs in the great hall of our temple, has always been something of a mystery to us. This is a Barzar that created the beginnings we call the Ash Withers. This is where Andraste's followers immortalized themselves and became the eternal guardians of her temple. I have painstakingly pieced together information from old books and from the tales and half-truths passed down to us by our forefathers. I believe now I understand the ritual used to create the Withers. The Barzar was lit with a consecrated taper, its flame taken from the everlasting fire that long ago consumed Andraste herself. The chosen disciple would fast and pray for weeks, taking into his body nothing but a sip of water a day. When the discipline was finally ready, he would place in his mouth a flawless black pearl and step into the flames. In ancient Tevinter, black pearls were thought to be magical. able to stop the soul from passing through the veil when held in the mouth at the moment of death. Thus, Andraste's disciplines considered themselves to the eternal flame. They became dust and ash, and rose again and again to protect the most beloved of the Maker. From the Journal of Father Colgrim, Cardin's Journal. 940, 45th day, 5th year of the reign of the King of Velter. I have done it. The vision the ancestor gave me has come to fruition. Today a man sat up from my forge, a man of living stone and steel. I call him Gollum. For the legend of those great statues animated by the dead, they are future and our salvation. 940, 60th day, 5th year of the reign of King Valter. It is a horrific process. Not every man could do such a thing and survive with his mind intact. I am honored that the ancestors believe I have the strength to bear this burden and forge Ozamar's defenders. Nothing so great may be achieved without sacrifice, nor may stone and steel walk without a spirit to animate them. 940, 73rd day, 5th year of reign of King Valter. I have asked for volunteers. Some few answered, men of warrior caste, younger sons with no property, no chance for marriage. They want to defend Ozamar from the horrors these humans have unleashed. They want to live forever in a body stronger than the finest armor. They do not ask to speak with those who have gone before. I have put off saying this, even in these pages, but I must say it now. My golems will be powered by their deaths. These brave warriors come to me naked as they were born. I dress them in the skin of armor, so large it makes the brutest look no more than a baby. The anvil, their first and final cradle. We are surrounded by a mile of earth on either side, and no one hears the screams as I pour molten lyrium throughout the eye holes and mouth. Every joint and clank in the armor. They silence quickly, but the smell lingers. Just a trace of blood in the greater stencil of the hot metal. I must work faster. I must work fast. The armor is malleable now, and I shape it with a hammer and tongs. It is not long before it moves beneath my hand. It is not long before it moves beneath my hand, withering and twisting with every blow. It speaks again, now, a low moan, but I have learned to tune it out. I can afford no error in this craft. There can be no melted slang blinding the eyes, nor an unhewed bit of granite slacking the leg. They groan at my work, but they would rather be broken, crippled. Those I have spoken to tell me of the pain, but could they see themselves, they would see perfection. From the Journal of Cauldron. Death of a Templar. The dry, dusty earth swallows up salty drops that splatter its surface. A tiny insect pauses, sensing the vibration, and scurries off, living behind its inevitable enemy. As the drops fall, the dark circles merge together, expressing a mirror to the Creator. The primal emotion of bloodlust and sorrow blend into a lethal cocktail that breaks the strongest of men. The jurisdiction of strength must be left to the spirits, not arm nor chest. Only the wisest turn to his inner sanctuary to partition the mind from the all-consuming madness. Seductive voices whisper promise of glory, weighting down the weaker path of the flesh, bringing a death far worse than that of hot lead or steel. These blank, hollow promises will echo the unfathomable eternally. Living comfortably amongst material possessions, it is easy to misunderstand the true meaning of uncontrolled hate, failing to understand the power of fighting against pure, unfathoming beliefs. Against foes that listen only to their souls, uncontrollable hate infused and thus removed from innocence. The scar is permanent and eternal. The rain, now red, feeds the debt owed for actions past, seeking further into the earth as the mind draws slower. What was it that drew him himself into the situation? The mind ebbs and parts to a lingering memory of true innocence. He entered war as a newborn enters earth, unknowing of both horrors and light of the maker that will save him. The sound of metal sliding along leather comes from above him. From the second he was born to his soon be dying breath, his mind was processing and analyzing knowledge and experiences. It is true that he thought he could be wise in his own eyes, but only the most humble recognize that he knows very little. Biased speculation and all the false pretenses make way to the sound of the sweeping steel, and then finally his soul, as ready as his eyes dry from his final understanding, enters his promise of its purest form. From Death of a Templar by Sir Andrew Knight of Andraste and Templar Achieves. 9-4 Dragon. Nug. Hip deep in mad nugs. Our screams defy their keen ears. We will be nug poop. From a song that only nugs can hear by Paragon and Brian. 584 Exalted. The nug is considered an omnivore common to the deep roads, a hairless creature that is almost blind as well as completely docile. It spends most of its time wilding in shallow pools as well as mud pits, feeding on small insects, worms, and in a pinch limestone and simple metals. Indeed, the digestive system of a nug is legendary, able to make a meal out of almost anything a nug finds on a cave floors. Nugs reproduce rapidly, spreading into any niche within the deep roads they can find, and serve to support a variant of predators such as giant spiders and deep stalkers. So too do dwarves make meals out of them. Nugs are in the poorer slum portion of Ozamar, one of the most common sources of meat available. Some dwarves even domesticate the creatures, claiming to find the creatures' high-pitched squeaks pleasing. In praise of the humble nug, I once served a human some nug, and he proclaimed that it was like eating an unholy union of pork and hare. The idea disturbed him so much that he declined to finish his serving and made himself content with some stale bread. Of course, this is only goes to show that the surfacers, human or otherwise, have tragically unrefined palates. The nug is surely the most delicious animal I have ever tasted. Only a dead man would not salivate at the thought of a tender morsel of roasted nug melting in his mouth. The paragon Varin, although his house has fallen, shall always be remembered for discovering the wonders of nug flesh. Admittedly, it was discovered only out of desperation when he was separated from his legion and lost in the deep roads for a week, but we won't hold that against a good paragon. While nug pancakes and nug nuggets, my own children love these, are the nug dishes one encounters most often, nug can be prepared in other interesting and elegant ways. The late King Ansgar Anduk adored nugs served on a hot metal plate and finished in a oven and dressed in a cream sauce flavored with deep mushrooms. You must be careful when using the mushrooms from the deep roads because they often grow close to darkspawn blood. They say that this is what gives them their unique flavor and intoxicating scent, but it also means that consuming too many may result in curious afflictions of the mind. From In Praise of the Humble Nug by Bargain Talbin, honored chef of House Aldukin. I don't know how many different ways I'm going to pronounce that name. Traditional dwarven folk songs. Nug sits in the mud. Nug wiggles his ears. You catch the Nug, he slips away. Nug gets to live another day. Nug sits in the mud. Nug wiggles his toes. You hook the Nug, he slips away. Now the Nug runs off to play. Nug sits in the mud. Nug wiggles his nose. You tickle the Nug. He laughs away. Now the Nug sits on my plate. Nug pancakes, a well-loved dwarven nursery rhyme. Obviously, you can see why. Callan's document 3 of 3. This letter appears to have crumbled, then carefully smoothed out and folded again. Callan. The visit to Ferelden will be postponed indefinitely due to the Darkspawn problem. You understand, of course. The Darkspawn have odd timing, don't they? Let us deal with them first. Once that is done, we can further discuss a permanent alliance between the Orlais and Ferelden. A note written in uncharacteristically familiar tone from Empress Selic 1 to King Callan. The Dead Cast. Dearest Grilly, I know things have been difficult since the censor of our house. I had hoped to bear the cost of my actions alone, but if I had a full understanding of consequences, I wouldn't have murdered above my caste in the first place. I did not abandon you lightly, but I knew of no other way to isolate you against my shame than by joining the Legion. It is a half measure that has earned me no right to seek comfort, but please, I beg you for one moment of foolish optimism. There is talk of a new soldier, a noble. The things I have heard, I will not curse them by voicing them aloud, but it may be a path to respectability for my kin. For you, if there remains any official line open to our name, can you verify he is real? That House Ferelden is in good stand? A letter from Malice Unsent. The Crosscut Drifters. Fools and renegades, a lot of them. We accept that there is a time for order and educated treasure hunting, but not when a foundation remains to be cut. What fortunes have they made? What houses have been elevated? The minor veins they have traced has satisfied neither this assembly nor their own gambler's thirst. Their action can only grow more erratic and undisciplined, and while no incident has been reported, they will eventually undermine the stability of a major passage. It is in the opinion of this assembly that prospecting is restricted until we can be certain of the stability of the deep roads. These cross-cut drifters can find their fortune in a trade. Let animals burrow wherever their noses point them. Dwarves are meant to excavate by careful degree. From the Assembly, Memodorum. Rogue cut a beautiful line down a minor vein today, twisting his support along the footwall like a backbone. He's got a gift for lagging. It's almost crystalline. I swear I could tap it and hear the stone sing. Non-standard by any inspector's measure. But that's the sodding point, isn't it? We're letting the stone take us where she wants, not gouging out highlands so the palace can have another pantry. I suspect they would revoke our privilege at the next assembly sitting. I say good luck to them. They'll never find us to deliver the rut. They are afraid of the road we travel. We're close to a major strike. The stone, she's putting us to something, and to the vents, if I'll let dwarves who deny their senses get in the way of that. From the Journal of Brunar, founding fellow crosscut drifter. Bronto. There are only two things a noble will step aside for: paragons and angry Brontos. Dwarven saying. This hulking beast was originally bred by Dwarven Sharkrate as a beast burden of food source, the rough equivalent to the surface ox and cows. Some versions of the Bronto have been developed as Dwarven mounts, valued far more for their sure-footed and stamina than for their speed. While present within Ozamar in large numbers, some Brontos still exist in packs within the deep roads, having returned to the wild state after fall of the Dwarven kingdom. They require remarkably little substance, consuming organic matter from water, fungus, and even rocks. Hence, the rock liquor Eliaction used by many dwarves to describe Brontos, and exited in primarily dormant states upon provoked and angry. Charging Bronto is considered to be a rather dangerous opponent. The shepherd's life. The blessing of the shepherds is given only to those who walk with the stone. It is a path that cuts deep, and the road is far from secure. But those who desire to work in the memory must first honor it, describe the stone, protect her, and present a new history to the memories. Only then will the blessing of Chaperite be upon you. From the Shepherd's Life. Topsider's Honor. The fool has been following us for 3 days, but what can I do? I'm sure a city guard could lock him up for being a solid idiot, but there's no law that says you can't seek your death in the trenches. There's no law down here at all. I said to his face that if he put our patrol at risk, I'd split him myself. But he's quiet. I'll give him that. Topsiders usually assume the end of the Blight uses the Darkspawn from the world. Why does this one care that his victory drove them back down on our doorstep? It's one thing to face them up in the light. He'll cut his own shaft out of here once he fights them in the dark where they live. That, or the lyrium will get him. From the Legion of the Dead Field Reporter by Lieutenant Grunt. I swear, Mortavold, I have never seen the like. This elf fought like a man possessed. His strikes were light and did not echo on the stone, like those of our greatest. But the provision was that of a shaper crawling in memory across the Darkspawn. Damned if we didn't raise our glass to him last ever and share stories of honored family. What a topsider. In the lyrium glow, he looked no more out of place than any of us. It makes me think of Cousin Byrne. I wonder how he fares on the surface. I think if he sends another letter, I will read it. Ties of kin should be stronger where we choose to do our business. From the letter of Colaport Trodavid Orislan, date unknown. As under. Might not be elven. Maybe human. Doesn't matter. We can still follow direction. Torsen, head, and limbs bagged and despaired. Simple enough. This magic stuff doesn't seem that complicated. Sharper axis. Scribbled in the corner. No job for a warrior. First hole gets the bag. By order of Emberm Thorgood. We know they are out there, and they will move when their fellow vermin call them out. Watch for the signs and slaughter the lot. They will know it is coming and probably abandon the poor sap of the messenger. But even in that, our message will be sent with an authority theirs cannot have, by order of Ermin Thorogood. Okay, well, that was difficult. For me, at least. I like learning more about the history of the dwarves. The dwarves seem very interesting with everything going on with them. We need to still hopefully get Haramont elected. He seems like the lesser of two evils. But who knows? I don't really know very much about it. So, I will see you guys in the next episode. We'll catch up on camp. I don't really think there's going to be much to catch up here, but I figure we'll go through, talk to everybody, see what if there's any new rumors, and then we will head on back to Ozamar. So I hope you guys are enjoying, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.